So this particular business that I am in now started in 2018, so it's almost 8 years old. Um, and I got into it because prior to that, for about 10 years, I worked for a company where I was what they termed as recruiting, hiring, and training, really almost like new franchise owners. So it was a clothing company that sold direct to customers through showrooms.
Gotcha.
And I was recruiting people to open showrooms in different cities.
Okay.
So 99% of those people were women. And I stayed there for about 10 years. I was one of those people originally. And, I got to a place where the joke became if I had one more big idea, great idea that they deemed amazing that didn't get put into action, I was out of there. So I was out of there after a while. And really, though, then assessed why did I stay for so long? What was it? And I think one of the reasons that I stayed is that I really loved the part of my job where they felt they put it under training, but what it was really, it was coaching. And it was, people, these women had started these businesses. They were successful, they were profitable, they were moving forward. They were, a couple years in, and things started to feel heavy and complicated. And kind of what got them there wasn't going to get them to the next place. And helping them work through what I would now call the messy middle
Hmm.
of the business, work through and kind of get to that next place was really, I really loved that. There was a lot of strategy in there, but there also was a lot of dealing with people's feelings, and they were starting to feel guilty, like they were not spending enough time with their families, or they were starting to feel frustrated that the person they hired wasn't working out. So I sort of took that knowledge and plus my background in like my academia background and sort of meshed it together and created this business. So that's how this started.
Do you mind telling, just sharing a little bit about what you did study in college and maybe
Yeah.
why you chose that that major?
Yes. Yeah. Um, so I went to Dartmouth College, which is like traditional liberal arts, you name it. So and my degree's in history and psychology. And I
Okay.
took that psychology co-major on senior year, and I took all psychology classes senior year. I didn't take any, I was done with the history part. So that was kind of interesting. It was like a 1 year immersion, and I really loved the neuroscience part of that psychology degree. So um I that was the part that I really gravitated towards, more of like the cognitive science piece of the puzzle. Then when I graduated, I went and worked for an advertising agency in Manhattan, like it was like the Ally McBeal era. I don't know how old you are, but there was that.
I love that.
Um, so I worked in advertising, account executive, and learned a lot more about the human psychology of selling. And then at young and dumb, when I was 23 or whatever, I got married. That wasn't young and dumb, but I still married. So I got married and I moved to Houston, and I at that point went and got a master's in speech pathology, or really communication disorders was the degree. And through that experience, I again went back to what do I like? I really liked the cognitive science piece of that. I mean, speech pathology covers everything from swallowing in infants to people who have strokes. So, again, it was like more of like, okay, what are people thinking? How are they thinking? How are they processing? Um, so I have all of that. But then, came like the next version of my real world where I got all this business experience and starting businesses and making businesses work and scale and get to that next level. So all of that combined is kind of how I got to here.
Okay. And then I know sometimes whenever people transition into a new role or a new business, especially kind of like your own business, were you working your previous job at the same time that you started this one, or were you able to kind of
No, I
start with this
quit.
one?
I
Okay.
was over it. I quit.
Gotcha.
I quit, and which was scary, but I quit, and then I thought, okay, what am I doing next? And at that point, I hired my very first coach. Like I had never worked with a coach.
Hmm.
And through that experience, exploring like why did I stay at that other job for so long? What did I really love? I figured out what I really loved
Hmm.
and started this business that I have now grown for 8 years. And it didn't look exactly like it looks now, eight
Yeah.
years ago, right? Um, some of the niches that I've kind of gotten into, interior design, for example, like that wasn't on the radar exactly back then. But it all has really come together.
How
Hmm.
have you seen your coaching directly impact designers and the way they run their firms?
So, what I do isn't simply strategy. It's really, I would like to call it identity expansion. And when a designer stops running her business from fear, which is how often everybody runs businesses, like, what if this doesn't work? What if clients leave? What if this isn't a success? What if I don't have enough revenue? And starts making decisions really from belief, everything changes. So I'm really big about in helping people see that belief is just as important as budgets and marketing and metrics. And they have to believe that things are going to work and going to happen. And the designers I work with, I mean, they really I help them shift from being reactive to being strategic, or from being exhausted to being energized, or from being more of like an owner operator to being a leader. And when they make those shifts, their margins improve, their timelines kind of calm down, their teams actually function. And then that designer feels more herself in her business than ever. And I think that's sort of belief in action.
Awesome. Now, you often say success doesn't require sacrifice. That can feel counterintuitive for designers used to long hours, demanding clients or families, and creative burnout. How did you come to this realization, and how do you help designers apply that in their own practices?
So this belief came from experiencing the opposite, really, the pushing, the striving, the sacrificing, and seeing women and, my previous job there, like do the same. Um, but I experienced the opposite and saw others experiencing the opposite and realized that it really isn't a requirement for success. It's more of the striving, pushing, and sacrificing isn't a requirement. It's more of kind of like a symptom, I'll call it, of misalignment. Um, Things started to change. So, I mean, I believe that success really requires energy, not like depletion, right? We think like if we're going to work harder, the success is going to come. No, I think success comes from energy. It requires identity clarity, like understanding who you are, not overworking and doing all the things. It requires, this was a big topic yesterday, actually, in my coaching calls. It really requires you staying grounded and focusing on what you value and your principles, and not just people pleasing, right? And there's a lot of that happening in the interior design, like wanting to please everybody. So with designers, I mean, we reorient really from I have to do more to I have to lead differently. And when they realign their energy and their beliefs, their success accelerates, like without demanding more sacrifice. So part of what I do is when I start working with someone is we do what I call a vision into action plan, or sometimes I call it an activator. And part of that is like, what are your core values? And it sounds so cliche and it sounds like mission and vision and all that kind of stuff, but it's not really. Like, what are you valuing? And sometimes when someone hires someone and they don't work out, 99.9% of the time, you can go back and say, do they align with these core values? Right? Like, and the answer is no. And like, okay, well, obviously they're not working. So I don't think thinking about sacrifice, or like thinking once I get through this, then everything's going to be awesome. Right? Once I push through this, then it's all going to be great. Like, that's not going to work. And I think that is what I do a lot is I give them some insight into this pattern that they're falling into, this sacrifice pattern. And once they can identify that, then things start to change.
Now, many designers start their businesses for freedom to create beautiful spaces on their own terms, but end up feeling chained to a client demands and constant decision making. What's the first step toward reclaiming that freedom?
So you reclaim freedom by reclaiming your identity. I mean, when designers say I feel trapped, what they're really saying is I am operating as a version of myself that I have outgrown, right? So the first step is really remembering who you are becoming, not like who you were.
Mm-hmm.
And you are becoming someone, you are a business owner. You're the woman who leads the team, who chooses how they want to show up, who directs the business instead of reacting to it. And freedom doesn't come to you when the workload changes. That kind of goes back to this like when this, then that. Freedom really returns when you change how you lead. So we do a lot of work on how you want to lead, right? Not how you want to be in the trenches,
Mm-hmm.
right? You got to get yourself out of the trenches in order to create that freedom. So if you're feeling trapped, what you're really saying is like, I'm operating as like a past version of myself.
Gotcha.
But that's something that like when you're in it, like when you're stuck in the peanut butter jar, you can't read the label.
Yeah.
Like you can't see what's going on. So I think that's kind of where I come in sometimes is giving you not really information, but more insight as to what's happening.
Now, as far as that reclaiming your identity, um, in instances where you've maybe worked with designers who've been with their, they started their firm like 20 or even maybe 30 years ago, is it sometimes hard for them to kind of reach back and remember what they started their business for to begin with? And is there maybe a process that you've had to create for them to remember, okay, why did I do this in the first place? Um,
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes
Yeah.
sense, but
No. I mean, why they did it in the first place. Everybody, there's four things. They say why I did this in the first place is because I didn't want to work for someone else.
Mhm.
Okay. So they wanted that freedom. They wanted more time to choose. They wanted to be able to choose how they spent their time. They want probably more money to generate more revenue, right? Who doesn't want more money in their pocket? They want to be energized by what they do, and they want to be able to put their energy where they want to put it, and they want to work with people they like, right? And in the world of interior design, they want to they're creative, right? So the cues that the cues are really if you've outgrown the way you've been operating, or if you're not aligned with the whole reason you started this in the first place, what the cues that kind of come forward are everything starts to feel heavy, right? It just starts to feel heavy. And that's an energy mismatch, really, right? Your energy doesn't align with where you want it to be. They start to know more. They start to realize that more is possible, but they can't access it. Like they can't get to it. They don't know how to make it happen. And I think that's kind of like a belief bottleneck, maybe. Um, they start to realize like they have ideas, but they have no space or time to act on them. There's so many things that they want to do, but they just can't make them, they can't do it. And that's a systems breakdown. Like they don't have the systems in place. Or they start to recognize that their team can be helpful, but they're not like owning anything. I hear that a lot. Like, I just want them to own it. Like, why do they have to keep asking me all these questions? And I think that's really an identity gap, right? Like they're not leading people who want to be led. They're just leading people who want to do tasks. And these are like signals that the business is waiting for a more expanded version of you, the owner or leader, right? And that's why you got into this in the first place. You wanted to have a new identity, right? And um this is kind of work figuring that out, right? And again, it's more about you needing to have I call it like a board of directors or a support system that doesn't just give you information. This isn't like you can't read this stuff in a book necessarily. You've got to have something or some mechanism or some person that's helping you get this insight.
Thank you. Now, you work with women whose creativity has outpaced their systems. What are some telltale signs a designer has outgrown the way they've been operating and is ready to evolve as a leader?
I think that goes back to a couple things. Like first, like I said, the energy piece, right? Everything is starting to feel so complicated and so heavy. And it's like an energy mismatch. You feel like you have no margin. You feel like you're not showing up for your family. You feel like no, you're not doing a good job at anything, right? Or um I think a sign too is like your business is kind of stagnant, probably, because you just don't have the space or time to figure out what those next steps are or to get yourself out of the weeds, right? Um, Also, you can't figure out what those next steps are. I hear this a lot. Like, I just don't know what to do. I'm really good at following instructions, but I just don't know what my next step is. And that's a sign that you haven't had time to figure out what your priorities are and what you believe. You haven't had time to assess like what's possible there. So I think it does go back to belief being structural. And you're also not giving yourself space for something I like to call like the intimacy of transformation. Like you're not giving yourself the space to figure out how to transform or to scale or to get there. It's just like you're on a hamster wheel.
So, in design, intuition and artistry are everything, but business requires structure. How do you help creative entrepreneurs strike that balance between inspiration and organization without stiffing their creativity?
So creativity is not fragile, right? I mean, it is not fragile. It is fueled by clarity and energy and it needs a platform, right? So you've got to balance that energy. You've got to protect your creative bandwidth, right? And a lot of times what coaching does actually is, or the work I do with my clients is I am protecting their creative bandwidth because I am giving them opportunities to reset, right? So you got to have a reset for your energy. Have you built in time in your week or your month to reset, to assess? Okay. And that protects that time, that creative bandwidth. Um, are you in order to have that balance of inspiration and organization, I'll call it, without stifling that creativity, you've got to build simple structures that are going to support your workflow. So we kind of have to go back to, okay, what are your processes and is it giving you the space for the creativity or are you so involved in the process that you don't have time for the creativity? Okay, so there's that. Um, Also, a third thing might be like going back to the identity. Like, I am helping the designer step into the role where she doesn't have to be the one to hold everything together. Like a lot of times I hear everybody keeps coming to me for all the answers, or I don't have anyone on my team. I am all alone. I don't have anyone to answer all of these emails or do the procurement or um, draw the drawings. Like I am doing the whole thing. And therefore they are not leading, right? And they are not leading. They're too much into the organization without having space for the creativity. So organization really is not like the enemy of inspiration. It's kind of like you need to have it. It's an architecture or it's a structure that allows you to be inspired, to flourish, to get that creativity out there without overwhelming. Like you need structure in order to have be creative, which is sort of an oxymoron, but that's what needs to happen.
Designers wear every hat, creative director, bookkeeper, project manager, even a therapist for their clients sometimes.
Yep, yep.
What systems or mindset shifts help them move from doing it all to leading with clarity?
So we sort of start by shifting from I'm the only one who can do this to I'm the woman who leads the business that supports me, right? And this is a common thing. I'm the only one that can do this, or I'm the one that does it best, or my client only wants me to I am I am someone who has a business that supports what I want to do. And then we build the systems and the standards so that the business can operate without constant handholding. So this is when your identity, so this is an identity shift, and the principles and systems and organization really align. And then that clarity that they're craving um, to in order to lead becomes like the default. So a lot of times though, this seems impossible. So sometimes I say we have to build a belief bridge and we have to get you from the land of this is impossible to the land of it's inevitable. And I like to picture this little bridge that goes over a river, and the river is called the River of Misery. And you might be floating down it because you're like swamped in doing it all. Okay. And there's a little bridge that goes over this river. It's got little wooden planks. And, you start on this land of, I'm not sure how this can happen. It's impossible. And you walk over this bridge plank by plank. And each plank represents like a shift in that identity. So instead of like the thinking, I am the only one who can do this, you move to, well, I mean, I am the one who's doing it now, but maybe I don't have to do it in the future. Okay. Then you're like, next shift might be, what if I got someone to do just this little part? Okay, I can get someone to do this little part. Now you're shifting into, hmm, what if they did two parts? What if I get better at delegating? Hmm, wow, they actually did a good job. So it's like it's a plank by plank. You move from impossible to possible to inevitable, and that's a shift. That's movement, and that does take time. It's not like you can do that overnight. So again, this is also why this is really like a process. Just like designing a room is a process. It's not done in an hour. This is a process that you need to create space for yourself to work through.
Now, you talk about helping entrepreneurs lead strategically, not reactively. What does that look like inside a design firm where every day can be unpredictable, pretty much?
Well, predictability in design is a myth. I mean, okay, like that is not happening, right? And your brain so wants it. It loves to know we all love to know what's next, right? We all like to have the plan. But if you can shift into predictable leadership is possible versus predictability. Like predictability, I think, is this myth. Okay. But predictable leadership is not a myth. And strategic leadership is really guided by belief and energy and having principles. So, belief, I know what I'm building and I make all of my decisions from that place. That becomes predictable. Or energy, I protect my time to think, not just do. Like that becomes predictable, right? And that's, I think, a lot of times what coaching can do. It protects your time to think. Principles. I run a business from my priorities, not from the pressure of the email that I just got or the client that's texting me or feeling like I have to people please. Like I just had a designer yesterday. She's like, I have to simplify all my client communication. It's got to go through one portal. Like I can't have this people texting, emailing, message like it has to be organized, right? And that needs to be a priority for her, but she's feeling this pressure like it has to be in all different places. Nope, she has to go back to her principles. So when the leader is anchored, that unpredictability of like the day to day, you never know what's going to happen today, no longer dictates like your week or your day or your trajectory of your business. So you've got to get anchored and have more like I'm going to call it predictable leadership and recognize that predictability of every minute is not possible, but a predictable leadership is. And I think that's again a shift.
Now, you spoke a little bit to this already, but scaling a design business often means hiring a team of trusting others with creative decisions. What advice do you give designers struggling to delegate while maintaining their brand's creative identity?
Delegation is not about giving away tasks, it's really about transferring thinking. So designers struggle because they try to hand off work without handing off the beliefs and principles that shape their creative decisions. So when they clarify with the person that they're delegating to what they're really looking for, it gets a lot easier. When they clarify like the non-negotiables, gets a lot easier. When they clarify like who are we as a brand, it gets a lot easier. When they clarify like the kind of energy that they want to protect for themselves, it gets a lot easier. And do they know, like I have a thing called the 5 levels of delegation. Like, do they know how to delegate? Do they know at what level they're wanting to delegate? So, level one is you need to do exactly as I say. It's kind of like having a toddler. We're going to sit down on the floor. We're going to put your shoes on. We're going to tie them. You're going to stand up. We're going to put your coat on, right? That's like level one, and that can be exhausting. But level five is, hey, I don't really care how it happens, but I'm just going to assume by 9 o'clock you're in the car with your car seat buckled. You can't say that to a toddler, right? But like, are they delegating in a way that's communicating what they're looking for? So that is a way that's going to protect their creative integrity, and it's also going to protect their energy.
That makes sense for sure. Now, you've guided many women through big transitions, whether that's rebranding, refining, or expanding their businesses. What's the biggest mindset shift that allows a designer to grow sustainably instead of simply growing busier?
Well, they've got to shift from like effort-based growth to belief-based growth. I mean, busy designers stack like more into a day than I don't anyone else I know, right? Um, but when they're stacking more into that day, their identity is like shaky, right? So I think sustainable growth is really identity first growth. They have to build systems that match who they want to be in the business. So the mindset shift that they need to make is I grow by operating as the next version of me, not by adding more to the current version. And that means not by adding more clients. They think, oh, if I just have more clients or more work, I'm going to grow. Right. And I want you to think about if I become a different version of me, the more clients are going to come naturally, the more revenue is going to come naturally, and we'll grow that way. So they've got to expand like their belief that they can lead and don't have to be doing all the things. And when they do that, their capacity expands. And when their capacity expands, the business finally grows in a way that feels good. But this is almost like which comes first, the chicken or the egg. So they like to think that okay, I need the more clients or I need the more revenue in order for me to hire someone to help, right? And I would challenge that and say, you have to believe that the clients and the revenue are going to come like now before you maybe have them so that you can hire the person so that you can go out and get the business or lead or be the like ringleader and let the other stuff happen behind the scenes. So this is a little bit of a chicken and the egg situation, and your brain wants to like be safe and protective and think you need all the clients and the revenue first. But I want to tell you that you don't. You have to believe that they're coming if you can shift more into a leadership role.
It
And
sounds
this is like leadership thing is like not something that designers understand even. Like they're not thinking like I'm going to be a leader. Like they're thinking leaders are in like at Google, right? Like it's like a corporate situation, but you own a business. Like you're the CEO. So a lot of this is like CEO identity, and that's something that's very foreign to designers. But I really encourage them to like explore that. Like, yes, you are the CEO. They're like, no, I'm not. I'm still getting on the floor and I'm still on the ladder and I'm still doing all that. Yeah, okay, but you're still also a CEO.
and having that
Yeah.
belief, it sounds like if you truly believe and that I feel like that growth is going to be natural and not forced. And when something, for me personally, just in life, when something happens naturally, it's not as overwhelming, I guess, for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's kind of how I interpret that a little.
Right.
Um,
Right.
Now, for the designer who feels stuck, successful on the outside but drained on the inside, for example, what would you tell her about what's possible on the other side um, of that bum out, so to speak?
So I think your outer success and your inner exhaustion, they're not they're not contradictions. They're just sort of like indicators. They're little signals. And they're signaling to you, like beep, beep, beep. They're signaling that you are ready to shift into a different place in your business, a new identity, a new quality of energy, a new set of principles to lead by, like a new playbook, right? You need a new playbook. And what's on the other side of this exhaustion is relief and clarity and agency. And that's an interesting word. It's like agency, like the ability to make decisions, the ability to change things. You have agency in your business. And it's not because your business is going to become easier, but it's because you become more supported, more strategic, more aligned with why you started this thing in the first place. So that exhaustion or that burnout is really not the end of what you're capable for of. It's really a sign that you are ready to evolve. And doing that is stepping into a new role and you will need support to do it, right? So I always like to say, who's on your board of directors? Like, how are you supporting yourself in this? And that means not just money support. And it doesn't mean your spouse is supporting you and like, oh, always there for you. It means that you have to kind of put your big girl pants on and start to make some scary, probably risky decisions. And that's where I think kind of a lot of times with the role I play, like I am there to hold your hand and to guide you to get to that next level because it's hard going it alone.
Um, Something I probably should have asked at the beginning, but for whatever reason, it's coming now. Why did designers kind of become your niche? I didn't know where that kind of happened for you.
Yeah. I I work with women in all different industries. So design is one of them. I happen to have a lot of designers, but the commonality is that, you got into this business because you probably have love design. So I am not really coaching people who have, I'll call it like vending machine businesses or laundromats or businesses where they're only in it because of the money,
Gotcha.
right? Like they're looking for something that's going to generate quick revenue. I am coaching people who are in it because they actually love the work that they're doing or the service that they're providing. And that kind of person is not getting into it because they want to be a business owner. Like that's kind of the sad part that has to come with it. um, and Also, the people I coach, 90% of them, 99% of them also have other responsibilities in their life, whether that's kids or a spouse or aging parents or dogs or something that's like, I'm doing this also because I want to have time for that.
Gotcha.
And I think where I come in is helping people, speaking of dogs, there you go, of helping people mesh who they want to be as a human with the work that they want to do. Or, like, I like to say, yes, we're talking business, but life is always fair game. So life is intertwined into all of this. And that really, your life is really what should be leading all of this, like the kind of life you want to lead and who you want to be. So, when you die, it's not going to say on your tombstone, led a successful $1 million design business, right? It's going to say was a good friend or a great mom or a loving spouse, right? So, like, how do we make that happen and have an amazing business?
That's interesting. I don't think I've ever really thought the tombstone piece was, I don't think I've ever thought about that, but that's so true. They're not gonna they're not gonna
No,
remember you for how much money you made or the type of
no.
business, but the impact you had on your loved ones um in your community.
Yeah.
Um, so how do people find you?
So you can, I am on Instagram and I am on LinkedIn. Those are my two most used platforms. And you can find me just by putting my name in there, Andrea Liebross. But also, you can go to your podcast player that you're listening on right now and find my podcast, She Thinks Big. And that is a great way to kind of get people call it like a dose of Andrea every week. Some Andrea isms. Sometimes people say, then I hear you in my head all week long. So I have a podcast too, She Thinks Big. I also have written a best-selling book by the same title, She Thinks Big, and that's on Amazon and all your favorite places. Um, if you go to Andrea's with an S, links with an S, andreaslinks.com, you're going to find links to all of these things, plus a link to a kind of like a I call it the silent saboteur audit. It's like a little bit of a quiz that's going to help you understand like what might be getting in your way of this balance that you're looking for, or, what might be getting in your way of not feeling so exhausted and feeling more energized. So I encourage you to do that audit. It takes like 2 minutes to help understand what is actually happening. And you can access that and all of these things at andreaslinks.com. And I'm always open for a DM or a message with any questions. Like I'm pretty much an open book. I'm happy to help you in any way. What do you have a plan for this, but creating this balance for the year? And let's do that together. I welcome you to schedule either a power hour with me or what I call this activator intensive. Those are two easy ways to get some little doses of coaching and someone in your back pocket with not a huge commitment.
Awesome. And then how often do you release a podcast? I don't know if it was weekly, bi-weekly.
Every week, every
Oh,
Tuesday, a
wow, you
podcast
are the lead.
episode. Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep. Every week.
Well, I don't think I have any other questions. Is there anything that I didn't pick your brain about that you were hoping to share with us, Andrea?
Nope. I'm good. Thank you for
Well,
having me.
thank you so much. I appreciate your time.